Anyhow, I don't have a cold open, so you have to say... Well, here's a curious question. Where does the theme song go? Do we just start with the theme song? Do we put the theme song after the cold open?
The theme song goes here.
Welcome to Your Aleatoric Reality. I don't have a tagline today either.
I mean...
Should we get a random tagline? I wonder if there's a random tagline generator.
The podcast where you can listen to...
Online slogan generator. Enter a word that should be included in your slogan. Aleatoric, of course. We generated 1,022 slogans containing aleatoric.
All right, read them all. Wait, no. Do we have a 1,000 die?
Well, it's funny that you should mention this, and I was going to wait till the news to say this, but we do have a random number generator on our website now.
There you go.
So if you go to, well, you know what? Every time we mention our website address, we should have to roll for which one we give, because there are 5.
Why don't we give them the one that works right now?
They all work right now. I mean, they all redirect to the main one.
No. Just remember I changed it?
No, I don't remember that. So the one you changed doesn't work the way we wanted it to work?
Correct. That's
okay.
a failed experiment.
Well, yar.quest is the one that is known to work. So for the time being, you can go to yar.quest/tools. I mean, if you go to just yar.quest, that will be our main website. If you go to yar.quest/tools, it gives you our random tools. If you want to navigate to it from the top menu, you have to select Cheese Director. Because that's
I was waiting to ask you about that until...
Well, that's what I got from
right
the
now.
random... The first widget I have on here that I made, I've programmed all these with JavaScript, and the first widget I have on here is get a random word. And so I got the word cheese, and I was like, well, I'm not going to just call the page cheese, and I got a second word, and the second word was director. So I called the tools page Cheese Director.
Right.
And if you go to that page, somehow... You can get a random word. You can get a random number. You pick the minimum and the maximum. You can randomize a list. Like, for instance, if this were episode 1 and we wanted to randomize piano, oboe, flute, double bass, vibes, and what was the other one?
I do not remember.
Oh, I'll just put other. And then we hit randomize, and it randomizes the list. Flute, double bass, piano, and oboe, which is what we have, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we got the same results. How random could that possibly be?
Well, I mean, it's not very random, actually, because it happened twice.
So this whole show is a sham.
That just proves that we have no free will.
Does it? Is that what that proves? It might prove that if you have 6 items and you choose 4 of them, quite often you're going to get the same 4 items.
That's totally fair.
I also put in a virtual fortune cookie.
Did you add the fortune I gave you?
I can't add it's from an API. It's from a third-party API, which some of the fortunes I don't like, and some of them have typos and grammatical errors in them. So don't think that we did that. If you go to our fortune cookie, I didn't write the fortunes. I just took a third-party API and said, give me fortunes that I can put into our website when you click a button. So anyhow, our website has some fun stuff on it now, so that when I want to randomize a list, instead of advertising that other site, I can just say, we go to yard.quest.
It sounds like we had a falling out with random.org.
We didn't have a falling out. I haven't even contacted the guy yet. I'm planning to contact him, but he probably doesn't have any more budget than we do. Let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, but...
Although he is selling random numbers to statisticians, so maybe he has a little bit of marketing budget.
They don't have t-shirts or anything?
Not that I've seen. I mean, I haven't looked too hard. I looked at who was the guy who runs it. I think he's Danish.
Oh, that explains everything.
Doesn't it? Boy, now we're really going to have a tough sell getting him to sponsor us. Okay, let's see what we have on the agenda for today. Please give us reviews and feedback. And by that I mean, if you like the show, go to your platform and give us a 5-star review and tell everybody how awesome it is to roll dice and determine things. If you don't like the show, please contact us privately at youraleatoricreality@gmail.com and tell us how we can improve, and we will do our best. So I've got some news. One of them, and it's probably all news that you already know, but I'm telling our listeners.
Okay.
I've noticed on a couple episodes, whenever I do exposition for the listeners who aren't inside our brains, you always react like, I know that. Yeah. We just talked about that 10 minutes ago before we started recording. And I'm like, Damon, I'm telling the listener this.
No, it was funny because I thought of that the other day. I was listening to some other podcast, and I'm like, this guy's reacting totally disingenuously. There's no way he doesn't already know this. He's in the story.
Well, take a note from them. Okay,
Yep.
So as you know, Damon, as Damon knows, and as I'm telling the listener now, I am looking for a job. I was doing some coding, and I stopped doing that, and I was looking for a different coding job. And the market's kind of rough right now, so I thought, well, why don't we let fate decide? Since I'm doing this random podcast, I should really let fate decide. So I decided to just
Hang out in
apply
men's restrooms.
to. If you're gonna break in, you got to break in loudly and clearly so I can hear you. Instead of just, it shouldn't be that case should not be an aside to the listener.
Yep.
That should be to me. So I actually didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said hanging out in men's restrooms.
And putting on women's clothing and hanging around in bars.
Yep, exactly.
Anyhow, where was I?
What were you saying, Lola?
I don't care. Nobody cares. Nobody's listening, and nobody cares.
People are listening.
That's funny because so my kids have listened to this show, which is questionable parenting. But every time I say something like nobody's going to listen to this show, they both say from the back seat of the car, "But Dad, that's not true. We're listening." So this is for you, my kids.
I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because if you record it, then it can only be false if it's true.
If you record it, it can only be false if it's true.
It made total sense in my brain.
I'm sure it did.
What I'm trying to say is that for somebody to hear that and declare it a fallacy, they would make it a truth.
No. If they say it's a fallacy, it is a fallacy because they have heard it. If I say no one's listening to this show and they say, contraire, I am listening.
Right. Then it makes it, oh, yeah, I got it backwards. Yeah.
I don't know. So I decided why not just apply to any job that I see and let fate decide. And long story short, I am going to be training to be a flight attendant. Because Fortuna has decided that I shall be a flight attendant. And I've been really going into it. It's weird too because there are people out there who really want to be a flight attendant and they go around and they train and they practice and they read all kinds of blogs and they go over and over to as many recruiting events as they can find, trying to fulfill their life's ambition. Whereas I, on the other hand, heard about a recruiting event 2 hours before it happened. I shrugged my shoulders. I was like, why not? I'm not doing anything else today. And I went, and I'm the one who got the job offer.
So where was the recruiting event?
The recruiting event was in near where the airport is. I don't know if you know this or not, but there are hotels around the airport that aren't they're just for hotel airport staff and airline staff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it was one of those secret hotels that normal people can't go to.
Gotcha.
In that weird industrial zone by Willow Run, and I went to this hotel. It
was here.
It was.
I thought it was in Florida.
It wasn't in Florida.
For some reason, to exactly right now, I thought all this happened in Florida.
I don't know why I'm trying to obfuscate where we are. It was in Detroit at the Detroit airport.
Right. No, but I just think it's funny because based on context of when you told me about this, I assumed that you were on vacation and accidentally walked into a recruiting event.
That would have been the better story, and you should have briefed me on that beforehand so I could tell our listeners that's what's happened. No, I just I heard on a whim, hey, there's this flight attendant recruiting event 2 hours from now, 20 minutes from my house, and I'm like, okay, why not? It was after the fact that I find out that one of the people at the event had flown here from Rhode Island.
It's ridiculous.
Flew to Detroit from Rhode Island just to go to a flight attendant recruiting event. And little old me is like, oh, sounds like fun. I like random stuff. I'll show up. And I get a job offer. And then...
See, I bet that's a huge red flag.
For them or for me?
No, flying in from Rhode Island.
Oh. I mean, people get really crazy about pursuing this, which the reason for it, the pay isn't super great, but you get free airline travel.
Right.
You get free plane tickets, and it's unlimited free plane tickets. So to me, I'm like, that's the best fringe benefit I can imagine. And that's the default plan now. If I don't get something better before the training starts, I'm going to be a flight attendant. And so I've really leaned into this, devoting to Fortuna thing. Because I did kind of as a joke on one episode, in the invocation to Fortuna. But since this happened, basically the way I'm justifying it to myself is hey, I'm living the random lifestyle. I'm doing
Yep.
a random podcast. I'm worshiping Fortuna by doing this random career that I never in a million years would have thought of if it hadn't just like come up randomly. So that's my biggest random news.
Oh, that's really cool.
Do you have any random news?
No.
What did you do randomly lately? Wait a minute, are you taking this random stuff outside the podcast and doing it in real life, or are you just all talk?
I'm just all talk.
And stealing. All talk and stealing.
Well, I mean, we watched me do... so last week when I poured dice, I rolled for the colors and they came out really awesome. It's all these little things I don't even remember doing. Like, it just...
Yeah. No, I mean, I was kind of pimping you a little bit because that the big thing is that you have been going to town with industriousness making all these dice.
Yeah.
And from... The original idea was because we were doing this podcast, Damon found this dice making class. And it was far away. We were thinking about maybe traveling to it, but it was too much trouble. So Damon was just like, well, I'll just get on YouTube and blogs and learn how to do it. And he bought equipment and he spent a lot of money on equipment.
I did.
And he's been just diligently pouring, making the silicone molds and pouring the resin and making all these dice. Well, if you follow our Instagram, which there's another news item, we have an Instagram that you can go to, which is, of course, our name is Your Aleatoric Reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see pictures of the dice that Damon has been making on there.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey. Turned out I needed a new hobby. Didn't know that. But I tend to have hobbies where I create or make things or refurbish pinball machines or make musical instruments. And yeah, just it's always make something.
Yeah, Damon is very crafty. I'm all full of ideas and I can't put any of them into the real world at all. But Damon just gets it done. So kudos to you, my friend. And the dice Damon have been making are really spectacular. And hopefully we'll figure out a way to get them to you if you become a Patreon member. Which, if we haven't said that before, we do have a Patreon that you can use to support our efforts here and get some random rewards.
I mean, a normal pour for most people is 7 dice.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is I think 38 different dice.
Yeah, Damon goes big all the time.
Well, I mean, if you're going to do something, do it.
If you're going to do it. The only other news I have is that it's weird because you're not supposed to tell people your license plate number. Everybody's like, if you take a picture of your car, blur out the license plate number before you post it. And I got a random related personalized license plate. I haven't gotten it yet, but I ordered it. And it says O Fortuna. I'm not going to tell you what combination of numbers and letters because O Fortuna spelled out doesn't fit on a license plate. So I had to substitute some numbers in there, and I'll leave it as a mystery which ones. But I'm pretty excited about getting my O Fortuna license plate.
So 0 Fortuna.
No, I mean maybe
0 for a picture of a fish.
Maybe. Anyhow, let's get on to our topic. I mean, maybe it'll be a topic. Maybe it'll be Q&A, debate. Well,
we're not doing another Q&A.
We can't do Q&A because we don't have a guest. We need to start getting guests. Please email us your guest ideas, whether it's you or someone else who does random stuff or likes random stuff or has heard the word random. Send us your suggestions at youraleatoricreality@gmail.com because we want to get some guests on the show.
Well, I mean, we've got guests already lined up. We just haven't bothered to schedule them.
Well, that's why we got to get a pipeline going.
Yeah.
A pipeline of guests. We need a roster because when, we have somebody who's like, hey, when I'm in your area, I'll be on the show, but they're not going to be in our area for a month and a half. If we had other people on the list, we could say, well, hey, it's Friday when we're recording. Come on down, somebody else. I have thought of going over to Ziggy's next door and just randomly recruit someone to be on a podcast.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
That's a Morton's List idea. That would be a Morton's List quest.
For sure.
So maybe if we end up doing a Morton's List episode, which, who knows, could be tonight, if the dice are right, we could get a mission to go grab a guest for our show.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're not set up for a guest either.
We'll make it work. If you know what?
They can sit on my lap.
If Fortuna wills it, Fortuna will provide the random means necessary. All right, I'm gonna eliminate as an option Q&A because we've done that too many times already without a guest. So it could be topic, debate, review, steal a format, or play a game. It is topic.
Okay.
And the topic shall be...
No, wait, hold on. What are you rolling from? Because don't...
What? I have a list of topics. Why? What do you have?
Well, I just have the things I've researched and the things I haven't.
Have you researched divination?
Nope, but you have.
Well, that's what I got. I got divination.
Okay, I guess we're talking about divination. I know you can do that off the top of your head.
Okay, so our topic for today is divination. And the reason divination is related, this could be heretical to people who fervently and devoutly believe in the ability of the universe to arrange the tools of divination to give you a specific message to your specific soul at this point in time. Your tiny little being is so important to the universe at large that it will arrange fate to give you a message.
It'll arrange fate to cold read you into giving money.
But another... and I'm not gonna, so I am a mystic knight, and I don't want to discount out of hand the existence of magic and mystery and peak experience and revelations and epiphanies. These are all parts of the human experience that fascinate me, that I have pursued lifelong. But the idea that this specific arrangement of tarot cards was specifically chosen to give me a specific message, I find a little hard to swallow.
Well, and also, like a lot of things, like placebo effect, hypnosis, I mean, I could take anything remotely related to the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of it just has to do with you bothering to think about something
Mm-hmm.
and taking the time. And then almost, people call it, oh, it's your subconscious. Blah, blah. No, you're just bothering to think about it. And then you're like looking at these pictures or whatever form of divination you're using, which we'll cover several. You're just taking that and interpreting it to meet a need that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like, that's powerful. That's powerful magic. It's because without it, it wouldn't necessarily occur to you how to solve your own problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gives you a framework to actually step outside of your problem and look at it from a different direction. I also think there's a great magic in just your choice to engage on that level.
The ritual. All divination involves a ritual.
Good ones do.
Yeah.
And I have taught tarot. I've done tarot for most of my life, and I have taught tarot to a lot of people. So when I say anything disparaging about tarot, it's not because I don't find it a valuable tool or respect it. It's that the people who just completely believe hook, line, and sinker that this is God or the universe or whatever sending me a specific message through this cards. I don't really go for it that way. But by choosing to engage in a ritual, in a magical practice, you are expanding your consciousness to the point where you can think about things in a way that you wouldn't ordinarily.
And to be fair, a lot of people who believe in God or whatever, they just use it as a word for things they don't understand.
Oftentimes.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thinking is very costly, energy-wise, biologically. That's why we have all these shorthands for things. That's why you get little programs and patterns that keep you from having to think about everything all the time.
Well, but your brain is a pattern-finding machine. That's my favorite thing to say. And I say it all the time because people don't realize. They're like, oh, well, this just came to me. No, it didn't. Your brain, in the background, without your knowledge, came to that conclusion because that's what it's supposed to do.
Hypercognition is a term I've heard used to describe that thing where, because you're not aware of everything that's going on in your brain, your executive function, your conscious awareness is just a teeny fraction of all the neural activity that's going on in your brain. But when your subconscious, or as some people would say, the unconscious, pieces together data and you get this flash of insight, it seems like magic, or it seems like it came from outside you, but oftentimes it could just be all the little disparate bits of information that you didn't consciously retain but that went in there that get fitted together and pieced together to give you a revelation.
Well, and the key to that too is belief, right? So I mean, we've talked about this between us about, we were talking about hypnosis and stuff like that, but if you have a ritual, if you have a belief that qualifies something as authoritarian, then that assists in that process.
Authoritarian or authoritative?
Authoritative, sorry.
I am nothing if not pedantic. When I bring up divination in the context of this show, Random Reality, because from a certain point of view, and we've talked about some of those points of view, people think of divination as this bit of magic, this way to get information from outside yourself or from God, the universe, deities, whatever. But looked at through a different lens, you take these cards with pictures on them, you shuffle them up, and then you lay them out, and you choose a course of action or change your course of action based on this thing that has been shuffled, that look through that lens, it starts to sound an awful lot like random reality to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the history of random reality really goes back to divination and gambling. Divination and gambling are the two proto-threads of random reality, because those were things that people did with randomness that caused real-life consequences.
Sure.
And I don't think anyone knows whether divination or gambling came first, but they both predate written history for sure.
Right. And I mean, I would presume that as long as there's been civilizations, there's been some form of mystic.
Yeah. So the earliest one we have is the I Ching, which in its very earliest form was cracks on a tortoise shell that was thrown into fire. They would paint characters on a tortoise shell. They had different, like, characters with different meanings. They painted them on the tortoise shell, and they would throw it into fire and wait until it started to crack. And then they would, knock it out of the fire and look at which symbols got cracks through them.
Right.
And those were the message.
And that predates, even tea leaves and stuff like that, or?
That's the oldest known divination. It dates back to something like 3700 BC that we have, archaeological evidence of.
Gotcha.
It certainly dates before that. But yeah, very, very old.
Well, the reason I asked is because it implies some form of written language. So I'm sure divination precedes written language.
Probably, but, augury, the watching of bird migrations, doesn't leave something that archaeologists can find.
Exactly.
So we don't have specific records of it. But yeah, so the I Ching started out with the symbols on the tortoise shell and then became the hexagrams, where you get six lines that are either yin or yang, and it's a binary code basically that gives you 64 different poems that are of a advising nature. It's called the oracle, where you can ruminate on a problem, you get one of these 64 poems, and it gives you some kind of guidance into how to approach
some vague
the solution.
Inspiration-y guidance.
They're often, it's a very deep subject that I haven't studied super extensively. So there's a lot of lore that I don't have available.
Right.
But there will be things like, it's auspicious to cross the Great River. It's not auspicious to cross the Great River. And these are understood metaphorical. A big endeavor, a small endeavor, good to do. There's times when it's good to approach something head on and directly. There's times where it's good to wait. There's times where it's good to circumvent and go at it from the side or do it sneaky. These are the kind of different advice that the I Ching hexagrams will give you.
But now you're also talking about the modern. I mean, have the poems so we went from a tortoise shell with symbols to poetry and broken lines. I'm wondering. I'm wondering kind of which came first, kind of thing, and how they got there. Because I'm assuming the poetry is inspired by the prior metaphors that were used to interpret.
Probably, and like I said, I haven't delved into it that deeply, so I don't know. I can't give an exposition on how it got from A to B, but the symbols became these concepts, which were then expounded by sages, and somebody collected the things they said, and it got boiled down over, many generations.
What's interesting that occurs to me as a sidebar, that's not movie related. It's funny how prior to, I guess, modern times, you watch the evolution of these ritualistic things or whatever, and every new generation or have continually reinterpreted and re-evolved, right? But then you hit the modern age, and all that stuff is cast in stone, and none of it's open to interpretation, and it's all static. That's really ironic.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how language used to be a lot more varied and changed more rapidly from generation to generation. And we still have the slang is different for the kids now, but the language isn't completely different than it was 60 years ago. Whereas, in the 1300s, if someone from 1300 could meet someone from 1200, even if they lived in the same spot and spoke the same quote unquote language, they wouldn't be able to understand each other. You know what?
It's funny you bring this up because I was literally thinking about this yesterday. I don't know why, but I was thinking about, Liverpudlian rhyming slang.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I bet there was just some asshole in Liverpool that was like really into this and pretty much invented this thing, right? And then it got popularized, and then by the time you get to like the 1960s, it's a whole dialect, right? Of rhyming slang, but stuff like that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, it's like slang. Even it goes through a vetting process and becomes approved.
Or it's a hashtag. It's like that's introduced for marketing purposes. Well, like jazz.
Yep.
I forget the name of the guy. There was a guy who I think was a clarinetist that had schizophrenia, and so he would see the notes on the page, but he would just like start playing,
jazz,
quote unquote, off notes, but like like I'm gonna just like wheel around and in and out of the melody and put like flares in a different key, or like trills, in a different key. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like he was like not able to like strictly stay in the printed notes, and some people were like, ew, that's terrible, why is he doing that? But then other people were like, oh wow, that was really cool. And then he did more of it, and then other people started trying to imitate it, and that's how jazz started.
And that man was Miles Davis. No.
It wasn't Miles Davis. It was earlier than him.
No, but that's super interesting.
So Chet Atkins is a similar story, because Chet Atkins taught himself guitar, and the only music he had available was a staticky radio that could pull in a radio station that was a little bit out of range, so he could barely hear what was happening. And so his style was completely unique, because he couldn't hear fully what he was trying to imitate, and he was just filling in with whatever sounded good to him. And he was just like an innovator because he just made it up,
Or like Black Sabbath was a really fucking terrible blues band for their time. Like there was no heavy metal. They invented heavy metal by being the worst blues band.
Well, I kind of hate the blues, so that's fine with me.
No, but that was their intent.
Metal,
that was their intent.
Was to be a blues band?
Yeah, they were called Earth. Yeah, and they were a blues band. And they were really fucking bad at it.
Good. I'm so glad that
yes,
happened.
Exactly. Because they're... well, it's a combination of trying to be a blues band and Tony Iommi putting his hand through a saw and then basically like emulating Django Reinhardt, because like he cut the tips of his fingers off, and I guess the guy at the factory was like, don't be sad. Have you ever heard of Django Reinhardt? He's only got 2 fingers.
Yeah, and it's crazy that Django's 2 fingers were on his fretting hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And that guy could play.
But that's why Tony Iommi tuned down to C with the lightest gauge strings possible. Like, he broke every single rule just to make it possible for him to even play guitar.
Right.
And
he became an innovator.
Exactly.
He became the guy everybody wanted to copy because he was doing something that didn't sound like everybody else.
Yep.
Whereas nowadays, people just want to like sound like, I want to be the next Justin Bieber, or I want to be the next Blackpink. Like every band wants to like fit themselves into the mold rather than just being a mold breaker.
But I mean, the train of thought, the natural train of thought there, and sorry to go off on this tangent, but I think it's quite interesting, is that I feel like we don't innovate as much as we used to. We just take 2 things and put them together and then go find another thing and stick it on.
I think we need to cast an I Ching hexagram right now. So do you have the die?
I do.
Damon designed an I Ching die from a conversation with me in which I suggested some ideas that inspired him to design this I Ching die. You should do the honors, because you designed, poured, manufactured, painted that die as your magic. But what we need is 6 lines. They are going to be either yin or yang. Is it pretentious to say yang? Most people would say yang.
You can say it however you want.
I don't know what the appropriate way to say it. But I grew up saying yin and yang.
Right.
And I've heard other people say yang is more correct. I don't care.
Neither of us pretend to speak Chinese. So,
right. So I'm going to say yin and yang. Each line will either be yin or yang, and they could also be changing lines. And so what I'm proud of, and what Damon is probably proud of too, is there's a method where you flip coins to do the I Ching. You flip 3 coins, and if you get all heads, it's yang. If you get all tails, it's yin. But if you get 2, then it's a changing line. That way, the probabilities are off from the original yarrow stock method. There's an original method of sorting yarrow stocks, and it's a lengthy process, which I think is good because it gets you into the ritual and gets you into the meditative state.
Absolutely.
But the yarrow stock method yields much fewer changing lines than the coin method does. So the coin method gives you way too many changing lines.
Gotcha.
And even it's a difference between yin and yang. It's much less likely for a yin line to be changing than it is for a yang line in the yarrow stock method. But in the coin method, it's equally likely for a yin line to be changing. So if you care about the probabilities, which probably I'm one of like 12 people on Earth that care about it this much, but the probabilities are closer to being correct on our die, on Damon's die, than they are in the coin method.
Well, and I think that's really cool because what that says to me is, especially with the changing lines, if they're happening that frequently, it's not very, it's not the same ratio at all. Mm-hmm. So basically you're getting, if this is a way of communicating with some whatever you believe, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But,
for my purposes, I believe that the magic is just choosing to engage with this non-deterministic process.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think of it. I mean, I don't care how you think. Like you listener, you want to think it's God telling us what to do. That's fine with me.
So wait, solid line is yang or yin?
Solid line is yang.
Okay.
Solid line with a little circle drawn in the middle means it's opening up, so it is yang becoming yin.
Well, I was just going to say for our listeners, so here's the probabilities, right? Because I have the sheet here that I worked it out on.
Awesome.
So there's 5 solid line, which is, I'm sorry, you just told me and I forgot already.
Yang.
Then there are 3 changing yang, 7 yin, and 1 broken yin.
Correct. So out of 16 possibilities, there's only 1 chance of a changing yin line.
Right.
Whereas in the coin method, there is, I think it's a 25% chance of having a changing yin line.
Yeah. So that's definitely a different output scenario.
Yeah. So let's get our first line. The lines go from the bottom line would be the first line.
Right. Solid line. Yin?
That is yang.
Oh, yang? Damn it. Okay. Again.
Solid line. Great.
Yin. Broken line.
Okay, broken line, yin.
Again.
The bottom trigram is lake. And you got yin again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yin.
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 Great, that's it. So the top trigram is earth. It's earth over lake.
So it's mud.
They're not showing me I want to fact check myself, but they don't have a picture of
the hexagrams?
Hexagram on this. I should go to my favorite.
And then on the die too, just while me just looking things up and try to keep talking, what I did was I painted the non-changing, non-brokens with one color, and then the changing brokens with a contrast color. So on this die, which is kind of the whole resin motif, I guess to say, is like a icy blue sky swirly. It's like silver and light blue and white, and then I colored it with white lines and then red for the broken or changing. So it's really easy to read.
Yeah, it's hexagram 19, earth over lake. And that one says...
What's the probability curve like on hexagrams? Have you ever seen any data to that?
Well, the interesting thing to me is that we didn't get any changing lines.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're the proper probability, you don't usually get changing lines. Mm-mm. The effect of a changing line is that you end up with 2 hexagrams.
I mean, it's a 1 to 8
because you interpret it both ways. So you have the first hexagram would be all of the lines before they changed. The second hexagram would be all of the lines after they changed. So you get 2 different hexagrams, and it's like before and after. Then you interpret them as like a transition point, as opposed to like what we just got is just one unchanging hexagram, which will give you a snapshot of what's now, but it's not like a turmoil, not like a crucial, what in Chrononos would be called like a crisis point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. We don't have a crisis point.
Yeah, so, and like I was saying, it's a 1 in 8 chance that you'll get a changing or a broken line.
So I am using iching-online.com, which is my favorite free online I Ching resource. It is iching-online.com. And so we have hexagram 19, earth over lake. And the judgment says, approach has supreme success. Perseverance furthers. When the 8th month comes, there will be misfortune.
Uh-oh.
The
dun,
image.
Dun, dun.
The earth above the lake. The image of approach. Thus the superior man is inexhaustible in his will to teach and without limits in his tolerance and protection of the people. These require a lot of interpretation. And it's also translated from ancient Chinese commentary on the judgment, which sounded kind of scary at the end. The hexagram as a whole points to a time of joyous, hopeful progress. Spring is approaching. Joy and forbearance bring high and low nearer together. Success is certain. But we must work with determination and perseverance to make full use of the propitiousness of the time. And one thing more, spring does not last forever. In the 8th month, the aspects are reversed. Then only 2 strong light lines are left. These do not advance but are in retreat. We must take heed of this change in good time. If we meet evil before it becomes reality, before it has even begun to stir, we can master it.
Interesting.
So this is pretty opaque to me. Normally, when I read as I start to read, the commentaries, it starts to form a picture. But maybe it's because we didn't ask a question this time, or maybe it's just because.
I mean, I was taking it to relate to the success with making this podcast because we didn't ask it a question, but we did so within the context and framework of this podcast.
Oh, that's how I was thinking of it. Yeah. It's successful. It's going to get tough at some point. And we got to be ready for that. So I think I think there's a warning against the slackening that is my fault.
No, we're both slackening.
But there's been a bit of a slackening because we don't have as much of a buffer now as we did when we started or before we launched. So we need to get more diligent about this process here and get ready for the challenges to come.
Or at least more organized, yeah.
Maybe somebody's going to dox me because I told him what my custom license plate is.
Well, you didn't, though.
I didn't exactly.
You told him the theme.
I did tell them the theme. So that's an example of the I Ching. Moving on to other forms of divination, the other big one is tarot.
Well, wait, before we leave I Ching, so I've always, being a Westerner, I've always, seen I Ching as kind of a novelty form of divination. I've never seen it, and also as the creative tool, as we'll get into in our improvisational music. But how is it regarded differently in other cultures?
Well, I'm also a Westerner.
No. So let me, I mean, this might just be ignorant on my part, and that's part of being a Westerner. But I've never seen anybody treat I Ching the same way that they treat that. I've also seen other people treat the tarot, for example.
The fuck is going on in our town tonight? Yeah. Anyhow, well, I mean, I don't think of I Ching as a novelty or as I think of it as like the respected and revered oracle, the most ancient divination form that we still have. I'm not disregarding. I'm just talking about, I've never seen anyone doing I Ching readings. You see people doing tarot readings all the time. This is probably a cultural difference. I can't really speak to the cultural origins of these differences, but I Ching is a thing that you do for yourself.
Gotcha.
You get the yarrow stalks or the coins or the dice. You pose your question. You have the book. You go through this meditative process and this ritual. You're reflecting. You're getting into a meditative state. You're reading the words and reflecting. It's like that's how it's done.
Gotcha.
Whereas tarot was essentially invented by gypsies to make money. And that's not pejorative because I have made lots of money by reading tarot, so I'm not casting shade on it at all.
No. But
the point of it being that it is something you do for someone else.
Gotcha.
And there are certainly people who do use tarot for themselves. I also have a very difficult time reading for myself because I second guess every single thing.
Right.
I'm like, well, it could mean this, it could mean that. It's inside my head. I don't like. But if I'm talking to someone, particularly someone I don't know, it's paradoxically it's easier for me to read tarot for someone I don't know than for people I do know. And I look at the card and I say, this is the symbolism. I get some feedback from the person and there's like a message that connects. And that doesn't happen for myself. So to me, and that's probably very largely based on cultural differences as well. But I Ching is something reflective and meditative that you do for yourself. And tarot is something that a person interprets these for an audience, essentially.
Well, and by that same notion, that's true of Eastern religions versus Western religions. Western religions are pulpited, and
quite
Eastern religions are reflective and introspective. I'm
well,
super generalizing there.
Yeah, I did go to a Korean Zen Buddhist temple one time. Have I talked about this on the show before? Because I'm
In
sure I've talked
Chicago?
to you about it. It was in Chicago.
Yeah, you did. I don't remember which episode, but
Oh,
I think it was
okay.
the gambling episode.
All right, but anyhow, that definitely had a procession of clergy people who were ringing bells and entering, and people sitting with the little lecterns chanting, and that was very churchy to me, more than I expected, having been only to like.
But they're all chanting, right?
Yeah, there were times that the priest is saying stuff. I assume because I don't speak Korean, it was all in Korean. But there's definitely an officiant there and like helpers.
My
and
point being, I don't know what I'm talking about right here, but my 5-cent perspective is that there's not, in most Eastern religions, at least that I've observed, you don't get this oration, you don't get this performance, you get a shared experience as the people do, and then there's like, oh well, this is like the guy who's smarter than us, and we listen to what he says, but he also doesn't like ask us for money.
Yeah, I can't remember whether they asked me for money. I don't think they did.
I mean, I'm sure there was available place to
I'm sure
donate.
you could give a donation. I may have, I just don't recall. Anyhow,
sorry, that was a weird tangent.
This show is all weird tangents, isn't it?
Well, no, I just
isn't that the point of this show?
I think it's an interesting dichotomy, and I was just kind of sussing that out as I spoke, right? My thought process, and it's interesting to find those parallels.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I never really thought of it directly in those terms before, but you're totally right that you don't go to a psychic fair and see people advertising I Ching readings,
right?
Because it's something you do for yourself.
Interesting.
Anyhow, so tarot then came about in the late 14, early 1500s.
And we covered
Italy.
a lot of this in the gambling episode.
Oh, yeah, we did. Okay.
Yeah, so you can zoom forward a little bit.
All right. Well, then let's just, what should we do with tarot now? Let's get a random tarot card.
Well, I mean, you can still speak to it. Not everybody's listened to that episode. They might have just listened to this. But I'm just saying we don't have to go as in-depth with I Ching. We've not spoken to that before.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what I had for breakfast today, let alone what we talked about 2 weeks ago.
No, but I mean, obviously, I can't imagine somebody is not familiar with the tarot. It's a bunch of cards with pictures, and the pictures have pictures inside of them, and pictures inside of them, and
what is this pictures inside pictures you keep talking about?
Every time I hear somebody give a tarot reading, they always start talking about like the stuff in the background as well as like
because there's like lots of symbolism in it.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, I'm saying that depending on what deck you're using, but if you're using the standard, whatever it's called, the people have kind of the pictures in pictures interpretations.
Yeah. Well, there is definitely a difference between tarot decks that just have pips on the number cards versus tarot cards that have a robust, complete symbolic picture on every single card, which that was the innovation for specifically reading, like using fortune telling. Because when tarot cards first came out, it was just a card game.
Right.
It was like bridge.
What was it called?
Tarocchi or Tarok, depending on the country. But
it's not Sabak.
No.
Go on.
Isn't that a Star Wars game?
Yes.
All right, now not the Star Wars game.
Oh.
But the tarot cards, originally just had like the Four of Swords would just be 4 swords, block printed. So all the numbers didn't have any differentiation other than the quantity of the thing. But then when people started getting a lot more into using it for divination, they started printing symbolic pictures to kind of like make it easier to remember what the card is about, instead of just like, oh, this card has 2 swords, and that means like I got to think about what the card that has 8 swords versus the card that has 9 swords. How am I going to remember all this? Somebody, and we know his name, I just don't remember it off the top of my head, made the first deck that was for divination that had pictures for a unique picture for every card.
I was actually kind of a question I always had too. I was wondered because the symbolism is fairly universal and generic across all occult whatevers, right?
What is
the symbolism that's used in the cards?
No, it's not at all standardized.
But they're common themes that are in like all quote unquote occult.
Sure, there's a common tradition that it draws from, but it's gotten out of hand. There's thousands and possibly tens of thousands of different tarot decks now.
Oh, I know. I'm only like for the sake of this conversation. I'm only what's the standard one?
The Rider-Waite.
The Rider
Smith.
Yeah. That's the only one I was really considering because I mean there's one with cats and it's just it's gone real overkill. But I was actually going to ask you if the person who designed those cards was like Order of the Golden Pony or if there was some kind of connection.
The person who dictated the symbolism of the cards was A.E. Waite, Arthur Edward Waite.
Did he read it out of a hat?
Did he read it out of a hat?
That was a Joseph Smith reference. Go on.
Oh, right. Okay. I have not yet been to Salt Lake City, so I will learn more about the Latter-day Saints when I go there for my flight attendant
All
training.
you need is the South Park episode.
Yeah, no, I did see that one. Yeah. But anyhow, so Arthur Edward Waite came up with the symbolism, and Pamela Coleman Smith was the one who actually painted the pictures, which is why I always say the Rider-Waite Smith deck, because Pamela Coleman Smith, being a woman, conveniently got left out of the glory of this like famous tarot deck. Like, oh, it was Rider and Waite. Rider was just the guy who owned the publishing company that printed them. Yeah. So, and a lot of people call it the Rider deck. And it's like, dude, Pamela Coleman Smith painted all those pictures. Come on.
I'm sure Crowley was involved at some point.
Well, Crowley did his own deck, the Thoth deck, which is one of my very favorite decks. It's a little bit harder to use. The art is very
Crowley-esque.
Modernistic. And again,
now what year is this?
When Crowley did his?
Roundabout. I mean, I obviously don't. See how much faith I put in your knowledge that I ask you these questions and I think you would know the answer?
I mean, back when I was teaching, I probably had it to hand, but mid-40s.
Yeah, okay.
It came out in the mid-40s. The Waite's deck probably came out in the late 1800s.
So what was his tangent then? Was that Golden Dawn?
Crowley?
Yeah.
Crowley was in the Golden Dawn with William Butler Yeats. But then he kind of took over the OTO, which was a German organization, by publishing. He published like an article on sex magic. He, I think, had never heard of the OTO, but he published this article about sex magic, and the OTO contacted him, threatening to sue him for revealing their secrets. And he's like, "Wait, who are you people?" And they're like, "Wait, you never heard of us? You weren't a previous like member who like published?"
Oh, that's fucking funny.
Oh, we need to join you up right away.
Yeah.
And he basically easily took over that organization, because he was nothing if not a flim-flam artist who could very easily create authority and whatnot.
But that was like before the Egyptian phase, right?
Golden Dawn was really into Egyptian shit.
Okay.
The early pictures of him like wearing a nemes and that's the like pharaoh headdress and stuff. Those are from like some of those are from Golden Dawn.
But everybody was into everything Egyptian at the time.
Yes, that was when there was I forget who said it, but there was a famous quote that like 100 parts of magic came into the world and 90 of them were given to Egypt. Like everybody just like totally idolized and glorified Egypt as like the center of magic. And to be fair, Egypt is the place that had the magical texts.
Well, that was when Tutankhamun was discovered, right? Around that time, and then
the craze for Egypt, yeah.
Because I might be getting I think it was Tutankhamun, but you see it in architecture. You see, I mean, there was this whole like starting in like 1918. All of it, like in anything you look at, all of a sudden there's this huge Egyptian thing that comes in.
Egyptian,
and it's not because a bunch of dudes from Egypt were like, "Hey man, check this shit out." No, it's because some fucking British pomp went and dug up a dead guy.
Well, it was probably because Napoleon was in North Africa, and when they were in Egypt, he was like, "Oh, that's cool, bring that." And he just like stole a shit ton of Egyptian artifacts. And then when the British defeated Napoleon, they're like, "Oh, this is some cool Egyptian shit. We're going to take it to our museum instead of giving it back to the Egyptians." And now it's still in the British Museum.
Yeah.
The stuff that Napoleon captured is now in the British Museum.
Well, it's better than in some Nazi vault somewhere.
Nazis shouldn't have it.
I'm just saying, there's still a lot of unfound. Yeah.
But yeah, a tagline on the Thoth deck, Crowley's Thoth deck, is that's another one that was painted by a woman, Lady Frida Harris, did all of the art for that deck, and she gets a lot more credit now, particularly because a lot of people in the occult world are women and are very much into equality and promoting women's accomplishments. But before, when occultism was like an old boys club, nobody ever knew the name of the artist. It was just like,
Right.
oh, this is Aleister Crowley's deck.
Well, or no, but back then too, I mean, the publishers were the ones, I mean, we're still dealing with a semi-new technology of even being able to mass produce cards, right? So the novelty would be with the promoter, who was in those cases typically the publisher.
I'm going to get us a single tarot card for this episode. I was going to do it online. That's not a complete deck.
Okay.
We can get one of those.
Let's get
let's get one of those.
I like the physical. We do this all the time.
Yeah, let's do it.
So should I shuffle them, or do you want to do it?
You're in charge. You're in charge of this operation. Do what feels right.
Okay.
Damon is shuffling.
Well, I have to charge
the cards.
them by sleeping with them under my pillow for 7 days and nights.
These are probably some cast-offs that I gave you at one point.
I think this is a sub deck that you were using for walking.
For walking? You mean for strolling magic?
Yeah, thank you.
Might be, yeah. So anyhow, Damon has a incomplete. I would say it's very small, way less than half.
When you
deck.
gave this to me, you said, I want you to keep this here in case I ever need or forgot my tarot cards. Now, this is the first instance because you've obviously forgotten they were here.
Oh, yeah.
But also, I took that to mean, hey, I have a bunch of stuff in my pockets. Here's some.
You've got me figured out.
So we have to cut it and flip it.
Oh, man, why would you flip it?
Because you told me to do whatever felt right.
It is the Three of Pentacles.
Upside
depicting,
down. Inverted.
To me, it's the right side up to you.
Yeah, but you're the reader.
I don't use inversions.
Oh.
The Three of Pentacles. Well, you want it to be inverted? It's inverted. I told you were in charge.
Yep.
So the Three of Pentacles inverted. The Three of Pentacles depicts the interior of a castle or a cathedral or something. It's stonework, and there are three pentacles chiseled, carved into the stonework, and then there's some people down below. According to my recollections, this is often depicted as the craftsman and the person who either lives in the castle or the clergyman if it's a cathedral or whatever you think. But it's, they're talking about the work that this craftsman has done on this stone, and he is a master craftsman. He is a master stonemason. Probably there's links to Freemasonry in there if you want to get real deep.
But he's got a full apron.
But he does have an apron, and that is a Masonic thing as well, too, isn't it? Anyhow, so the Three of Pentacles is mastery of a craft, stability, authority, the ability to do what you need to do, the skill and the ability. And inversions or reversals, when card is upside down from your point of view, it can change the meaning in certain ways. I, as a practitioner, don't use reversals. I make sure to keep my cards in the same direction when I shuffle, because to me, that is mere chance. Whether it's right side up or upside down is, well, did you turn half the deck around when you shuffled, or did you keep it the same? That's not to me meaningful.
But what part of any of the other part of it is not just chance as well?
Fair enough. But I choose to, because all cards contain light and dark as well. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to have subtleties and vagaries of meaning, that can just be, you can just bring that out of the card anyway. It doesn't have to be turned over for me to do that.
But most cards are either, like 3/4 light and 1/4 dark. Like they're not half and half.
No, not really. Yeah, there's cards.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is that's why I always liked the inversions, because it felt like there might be messages that there wasn't a card for.
Right. Well, this particular card, inverted, would be either like inability, like you find yourself falling short on a skill that you need. You might need to take a class or get some training, or take a step back and say, wait, I need to take stock and figure out how to do this thing that I need to do before I just, because sometimes, like if you have the Fool, for instance, that could be a sign of like, hey, even though I don't know what I'm doing, this is a good time for me to just balls out, like bull in a china shop, run in there and do my thing and improvise and see what happens, see how it goes. But in this situation, I would say this is a time to, like, if you're not totally sure of what you're doing, you need to get yourself up to speed quickly and don't take action until you have done some of that work. Some people say reversals can also like intensify the meaning or make it express in a different way. It's just like astrology. With astrology, you can interpret these signs to fit anything you want to say.
Right.
And if people say like, oh, well, you're a Cancer, that means you're really good with money and you're, responsible and you're a businessman and you're like, I can't even pay my bills. I can't even balance my checkbook. And they're like,
astrology is not astrology.
But you have Mercury in, the chaos zone, and that is what's impact. Like, there's always an answer. There's always like a backup for if you're wrong. Like, but this conjunction. But that aspect. So I am right after all. I don't have a real high opinion of astrology personally, but although I do love Rob Bresney, who writes Free Will Astrology, and he comes right out and says, I believe in astrology about 80%. And the other thing that he says that I like is that when people say astrology is bullshit because the planets are so far away and like, their gravitational influence couldn't possibly affect anything on Earth, his answer to that is, well, do you say that clocks aren't true because they don't create time? It's still useful.
Right.
It's just not
but also
causative,
by that same regard, the way that the full astrological chart works is the closer to Earth it is, well, the sun obviously being the center of the quote unquote universe, but a sun sign is not as dominant a personality trait, or they're not as dominant personality traits as your moon sign is.
Well, your sun sign is supposed to be your true self, your inner core, your ultimate nature. But your moon sign is more like your emotional and reactive self, how you behave in stressful situations.
See, I always thought of it as sun sign is what you are to other people, and moon sign is what you are to you.
I would think of it the other way around. Your sun sign is your true inner self, and your moon sign is how you appear. Well, although the rising sign is also how you appear to other people.
Well, rising sign is appearance, right? Period.
Not, you mean visually?
Yeah. Like,
not in the system I've studied.
Well, I mean, like,
not to contradict you.
No.
Because there's lots of different ways to approach astrology too.
By appearance, I mean the superficial version of things, right? So whether you're talking from the perspective of emotion or dress or whatever, like, Scorpio, like, anyway, we could do a whole episode.
Well, I think rising sign is like persona, whereas like sun sign is your true inner nature and moon sign is your
what's your triad there? What's your Cancer?
I have Cancerian sun. Mm-hmm. I have Scorpio rising, and I have I think my moon is Aquarius.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's actually, like, I honestly, that's what I would peg you. Like
Well, it's funny because recently a friend of mine told me about this book to read called The 5 Personality Patterns, and it's by this like guy who's been a psychotherapist for 30 years. He's a little bit woo. It's supposedly like based on how old you are when you have your first like trauma, or not like necessarily like bad trauma, but like bad experience.
Okay.
Like it basically like colors your personality for the rest of your life. I don't think it's scientific, but yet I'm looking at this with people I know and it kind of tracks. So it had like, but how much of it is you reading yourself into this system that sounds right, and how much of it is actually predictive, I couldn't say. But it's, because astrology is the same way. If you look at the description of your sign and the description of your chart and everything, you're gonna, like, most people rate it like between 70 and 90% accurate, even if they don't believe in astrology. Like, well, yeah, I mean, accidentally 70% of that was true, but the famous study they did where they told people to rate thing, and they gave the same one to everybody, and they said, this is your personal astrological description, rate its validity, and almost everybody rated it really highly because you will read yourself into, it's the Barnum effect, where you give enough and people think Barnum is just all being really, really vague. It's not necessarily vague. It's just things that are worded in a way that you can interpret it either way.
But that's any divination.
And you can, but a couple also specific statements that you, because of confirmation bias, you will just discount the ones that hit are much more memorable than the ones that don't hit. So even if you're reading and you're like, You're like, that's fairly accurate. Somebody asks you a week from now, hey, remember that astrology thing I gave you? You're like, yeah, it was weird. It was like most of that was true about me. Because you'll just remember the things that hit more.
So what would you guess my 3 to be?
What would I guess your 3 to be? Why are you putting me on the spot like that?
I'm just curious.
No, your sun sign is Taurus. Your sun sign is Gemini. Your sun sign is Aries.
Correct.
Okay. That's.
But I'm an Aries too.
There's only a 1 in 4 chance that I could have gotten it in 3 guesses. Your rising sign is a Taurus.
That's correct.
Which is why I thought your sun sign was a Taurus, because that's what you seem like to me. And then your moon sign, Virgo?
Yes.
All right.
You nailed it.
I did.
Except for the sun sign. But I don't think the sun sign is that much more.
Yeah, but only 3 guesses out of 12. Compared with the 2 dead-on hits, that's a pretty good astrology guess, my friend.
But I think, because I want it to be, you just proved my point that the sun sign is the least important. Now, what would you think my Mercury was in?
Leo? Do you know?
Oh, wait.
Do you know what your Mercury's in?
I mean, I could look it up. We can do this offline. It's interesting. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting, though, because I would have definitely... I knew you were a Cancer. I just knew that from your birthday.
Right.
But I would have definitely guessed Aquarius as your moon and Scorpio as... I mean, dude, you wear red fucking shoes.
That's the power of the rising sign.
Scorpio
it's
rising.
All appearance.
I'm telling you, like, I don't know, people with Scorpio rising, like Jimmy Page was Scorpio rising, and he dresses like an asshole.
Yeah.
But he owns it. See, that's I don't know. I don't know that I believe in astrology 1,000%, but I do find it fun to find those patterns and match them. And there does seem to be a higher rate of matching than I would anticipate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the fact that people can find it so easy to embrace astrology and to see themselves in astrology, it calls into question stuff like Myers-Briggs, which like companies use to like evaluate people as employees and to like choose like, well, are you going to be good in this job, or like what department should we put you in?
Yeah.
Is that really any more scientific than astrology? And then you have the big 5, the latest one that's supposedly evidence-based is the big 5 personality traits, which I'm not going to remember all of them, but it's like neuroticism, openness, extroversion. I forget the other 2, but there's like these 5 points that now, like psychology researchers are saying, like these are the ones that we can actually measure that have predictive power and such. But like, is it just a better astrology? I feel like the mind is like the least easy thing to study scientifically.
Well, also, I mean, people change over time.
People do change.
Sure. And astrology does accommodate that.
Does it?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, like transits and such.
Well, so like, no, but as you age, supposedly, or at least this is what I've been told or read, or I don't know where this came from. This is in my head, whether it's true or not. That when you age, you move towards your opposing sign.
I've never heard that before, but
not completely.
But that tracks for me.
Also,
what's opposite Aries?
Libra,
and opposite Cancer is Capricorn.
Yeah,
which is
stubborn,
also more goal oriented, more organized,
arrogant.
Ambitious. Oh, I've always been arrogant.
Also, there's always I feel like, and I've never really seen this track, but the traits of the signs translate differently in different genders.
Sure, everything translates differently in different genders.
No, but I mean, like, I do not get along very well with Scorpio males, but Scorpio females and I go great.
Because you're hetero.
No, there's a lot of... I have never dated an Aries woman.
Yeah?
I've never had any romantic interest or anything in an Aries
You said
woman.
Scorpio a minute ago, though.
Yeah. I've had several Scorpios.
Yeah. Because Scorpios are hot, dude.
No, what I'm saying... I'm going to leave that one there, but...
Anyhow, where's your 5-sided die? Do you have it available?
Yeah. I have all of them here, right here.
All right. I'm going to roll... So I'm still going to do the online tarot thing that I was going to do. I'm going to roll... This particular site that I'm on, you get a choice of 5 different decks that you can use. So I'm going to roll for which deck. And it is deck number
before
3.
we move on, though, I wanted to... There was one other thing I wanted to do with this tarot deck card. So I find it interesting I feel like our I Ching reading and our tarot card go together.
Because they speak to difficulties with production or like some kind of upcoming difficulty.
But from a business, like almost feels like more of a business sense. Like or a proficiency sense or what. They both spoke to proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And they both spoke to ability and success and challenges. So I just think that's not every tarot card, not every I Ching.
Most I Ching talk about success and effort, and there's a lot of similarity.
I just really felt like they both went thematically towards this juncture that you and I are on. Like, I mean, I just found it really interesting to put those together.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like, probably it'll be easier to put together retroactively because then we can read into it whatever we want to read into it based on what actually happened.
Yep, exactly.
So I'm going to get an online card now. 5 of Pentacles.
Pentacles again.
5s are what I call challenge cards. Some people might call them downright bad omens.
Really?
The 5 of Pentacles relates to loss and poverty and need and sometimes desperation. All the 5s in the sequence of tarot are fairly hard to interpret in a positive spin.
That's fine. Just do your thing. What if they're inverted?
Well, this particular one is 5 pips and it's symmetrical, so if it was inverted, it wouldn't look any different.
It does inversions?
I don't know. I mean, this one has radial symmetry, so it would look exactly the same.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Either way.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, the 5 of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck depicts poor beggars outside of a church in the snow. And that indicates a need for respite relief and sustenance.
Which seems like a good time to talk about our Patreon page.
It's a good time to talk about our Patreon, yeah. So here's how it's supposed to work. For our basic support level, most podcasts say, like, our basic support level is $3 or $5 or whatever. Our basic support level is $1d6 per month. And what that means is we devoutly wish that you will roll a 6-sided die, accept the first roll. Even if you get a 6, you're going to get rewards. I can say that you're going to get a little bit better rewards at 6 than you will at 1.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly, like, it's the same level. If you pay $1 a month, $2 a month, $3 a month, $4 a month, $5 a month, or $6 a month, that is our basic level. And if everybody signs up at $1, we're going to know y'all motherfuckers are lying.
Yeah, which it surprises me because it's like the whole point of the donation schedule is to support us. And if you're only going to support us a little tiny bit, then just don't. And
here's what it means, like, support us, is that we're going to do cooler shit.
Oh, we've already vowed that any money that this podcast makes will go back into this podcast in one way or another, whether it's, possibly subsidizing some of my dice making, but that's not really important. We
can't make any promises about where the money's going to go.
But
it is going to go into making a cooler shit
for
our website, for our app, and which doesn't exist yet, but I'm working on it, and our show, and including potentially the ability for us to, go to do a show live in your city. Like, if you're the person who we roll for, like, we're going to go to their city, we'll come to your city. We'll take a listener on vacation with us when we do our random vacations. Because if I'm a flight attendant, I'm going to be able to go places for cheap, really cheap.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that we want to do, but we don't have a bankroll and a bunch of money in our pockets to do it. So the Patreon is to give us the ability to do cooler shit.
Indeed.
So that's about all I have to say about Divination today.
You're going to finish with the reading of the 5?
I did. That segued right into our Patreon.
Oh, that was literally it. It was like, you're going to be broke. Next.
I mean, it's a material loss of some kind.
Oh, okay.
It may relate to our inability to do the skill that we need to do. Maybe everybody's listening saying, like, yeah, I totally see why you guys got that, because you guys suck. But we will get better if we see. So here's why I brought up Cyanide and Happiness earlier. But in the pre-show, I was talking to Damon. I was like, hey, you ever read Cyanide and Happiness? And he has not. He doesn't know what I'm talking about. And maybe you don't either. There is this web comic called Cyanide and Happiness. It's really hit or miss. There's like several different authors who comic writers who rotate, writing little comic strips. They're usually perverted, very adult, like definitely not safe for work, not safe for kids.
Also like something I enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of them are really funny. Some of them are like just dumb or gross or whatever. But there's like,
what's the one that's like something Bible thing?
Perry Bible Fellowship has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But that is a really good webcomic.
Sorry,
Perry Bible Fellowship is a really good webcomic. Look it up. But Cyanide and Happiness, it's a little bit hit or miss. It's kind of random because you have different artists and authors doing it on different days. And the reason I brought it up is because when it first started, it was a lot more miss than hit. But what they did was they persisted. And they just kept doing. I think they've been doing it for like 10 or 15 years now.
Yeah, for sure.
And they've like, now they have, like, they do animation, they have better quality art, that like the quality has improved. Not only
they probably have more contributors.
They have. I think it's just a small handful of contributors that do it.
Oh, okay.
But they have, gotten some advertising money. They've been able to get like better whatever image software to make the comics, and maybe taking some improv classes. I'm not saying what they did or didn't do, but the kind of idea is that they just stuck around for so long that they started being able to put more, like, they got revenue that they could put more money into producing it, and it became this really cool thing. Just because when it started out kind of shit, kind of dumb. But they were just like, we're just doing this for fun, whatever, fuck it. And then they just kept doing it, and it got better and better to the point where it's like, I don't know if it's famous, but it's pretty well known.
I mean, if I saw it, I would probably have seen it.
I mean, people meme the hell out of it because it's like people post comics from it all. You'll recognize the art when you see it. But so that was kind of my pep talk to myself of, I feel personally that we have a lot of improving to do.
Absolutely.
And because we've just started out, we're learning about how to do a podcast and how to not talk over each other, how to edit it properly when we do. And this is the kind of thing that's going to come from persistence.
Yep.
And we're going to just keep doing it until it gets better and better, so that 10 years from now, we're as famous as Cyanide and Happiness.
Or we're not, and we still had a good time. I'm literally fine. Like,
I just gave him a death glare.
No, I mean, like,
no, we're not going to be famous.
I mean, we might be, but
it would be neat if we had enough money to do cool shit, like take a listener on a random vacation, or just like, I don't know, buy a Super Bowl ad.
See,
how cool would it be if we made enough money to buy a Super Bowl ad that was not to advertise our show, just to put something that made absolutely no sense and didn't advertise anything, and nobody would know why it was there or what it was for? Wouldn't that be cool?
I just picture us taking, like, because I just recently rewatched Idiocracy, where the Oscar goes to the filming of someone's butt for an hour and a half.
I just thought of that too. But what I was thinking for the... What I was thinking for the Super Bowl commercial is, what if we just have like a toad on a log, and it's sitting there and it's raining.
Three frogs on a log, and one goes, "Bud."
No.
Okay,
forget the toad. We have a hamster sitting on a watermelon, and the hamster's just kind of sitting on the watermelon for 30 seconds in the Super Bowl. There's no logo, there's no website, there's nothing except a squirrel or a hamster sitting on a watermelon for 30 seconds, and then maybe like a random word for our random word from our random word generator on our website, yar.quest, which I wouldn't advertise in the commercial, but something that would be like totally random that nobody would understand. That's on my bucket list now. I want to get a Super Bowl commercial that will only confuse people.
The amount of money that we would have to spend to get a Super Bowl commercial, we could buy like a mansion somewhere that was our vacation home that we only did the podcast
That
from.
wouldn't confuse millions of people, though.
Oh, but wouldn't it?
It wouldn't. Anyhow, that's all I got for today.
Okay.
We do need to issue a listener challenge, though. And I think the listener challenge should be something divination related. Either learn how to get yourself an I Ching, like either do the coins or roll the 16-sided die.
And there are online die I Ching rollers and
there are.
Yeah,
but and there's definitely, like I said, iching-online.com will give you all of the descriptions and poems and everything for free. You can look up the hexagrams. learn how to do it. Get yourself an oracle reading. Email us, let us know how it went. Or if that's too much effort, you can do a tarot. Go get a tarot reading.
Hey,
go to a
I got an idea.
one of those little booths that you can get like, $10 for a tarot reading or something like that. Or if you have a friend that does tarot.
Or perhaps by the time this comes out, you'll have gotten to an online tarot card generator.
Well, that'd be easy.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying another idea for another widget would just be with a very quick synopsis.
Well, it could be the Mystic Challenge, which
you could do an I Ching generator as well, really easily. Have a divination section.
All right.
But we could have the only online I Ching generator that uses the methodology that we came up with, or that you came up with, and I cast.
True enough.
Yeah.
That's true. We could promote the hell out of that. Like, hey, if you're doing it with coins, your probabilities are off, my friend.
Yep.
You need to come to our widget to get the proper probabilities for the online I Ching. So, I can probably have that done by the time this airs.
Awesome.
So go to yar.quest/tools. I just made your listener challenge so much easier. You can just go to yar.quest/tools, go to my online I Ching generator, and get yourself an I Ching hexagram. Done deal.
Yeah. And you could also do what you did with the fortune
challenge.
Make it so there's only one a day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You can only get one oracle per day.
Yep.
And the tarot challenge, the mystic challenge that I do, uses tarot in kind of a off-label way where I take a regular minor arcana card, a court card, and a major arcana card to generate a random mission or quest.
Awesome.
I could actually, maybe I'll just do that for the quest widget, have it be the Mystic Challenge, or I could do two of them.
Yeah, do both.
I'll do both. Go to the tools and see what's there by the time this episode airs, and have some fun with it. Email us, as always, at youraleatoricreality@gmail.com with trip reports. We will talk, when we start getting trip reports, we're going to say, user glaucoma had this cool experience. We want to share it with you. They shared it with us, and we're going to share it on the show. We want to get...
Or have you on the show.
Yeah, we want to get more cross-pollination happening, so...
For sure.
Keep in touch, and may the dice be with you.